Hello, everybody. It's Peter. Peter with an I, S-T-A-W-A-R-T. Welcome to segment 48 of...
I don't know, the Dark Tower, I guess?
The car passed at this slow speed. He had Nancy give Frank a high five. The pain was excruciating for both of them. Frank lost that round because Simon didn't say fall on the ground with your hand between your legs, howling in agony. They had a cold, icy pulse of radiating pain in their wounded palms. Uncle Teddy instructed them to imagine holding onto a glass jar and hitting it against the metal hood of an oncoming car while traveling 20 miles per hour. Glass used for canning fruit is different than windshield glass, but the lesson was no less effective. And the ache of the hairline fracture in her finger bones remained as a reminder of how fast 20 miles an hour was. Frank never played Simon Says again. I think we got him, said the ambulance driver as he used the rear view mirror to track them. As soon as he thought they were far enough behind, he pulled to the left in order to cut them off. "What are they doing?" yelled Joe. The words didn't even have a chance to leave his mouth before impact. The driver had, again, misjudged the proximity by using the deceptive mirror. He didn't want to turn his head and look back and risk getting a sore neck. Unfortunately, not looking all the way back could be the cause of a completely broken neck. Nancy and Joe assumed the car was roadworthy because Frank assumed it was roadworthy. Frank assumed Potty Mouth had tightened up the lug nuts on the wheels. All of them assumed that there were lug nuts holding the wheels on. Potty Mouth would have put them on, or at least warned somebody that there were no lug nuts on the wheels, if somebody had warned him that he was going to get crushed before he had finished working on the car. Paradoxically, if someone were to warn him that he was about to get accidentally crushed to death, he wouldn't have been crushed to death at all, and he wouldn't have warned anyone anyway. Both Nancy and Joe had to take a second look at the new contestant in their road race. "Is that our wheel?" asked Joe. "Yeah," uttered Nancy. If they tried to slow down, the car would be front-heavy and fall to the side. They couldn't just keep going and risk running into a corner. They needed that wheel back where it belonged. The race was on. "What are they doing?" yelled the driver as the lunatic in the getaway car bumped the ambulance. "They're trying to run us off the road," yelled security guard Lewis. Nancy was trying to use the side of the ambulance to push her wheel back on. As they would turn corners, the wheel would grip against the spinning rubber of the ambulance tires. The ambulance driver didn't want the clinic's van or any of the equipment inside to get damaged. Ounce per ounce, some of that equipment had more cash value than gold. To avoid shelling out that money from his own pocket, the driver tried to get away from the crazy kids. To keep up with the tire, and to avoid the front left side of the car from falling to the ground, throwing them into a spin, Nancy had to keep up with the ambulance. It was a vicious cycle that was rapidly gaining speed. Joe crawled into the back seat to help counterweight the car. Nancy told him to climb outside of the car and get on the back bumper. He told her to climb out of the moving car and get onto the back bumper. The Renegade tire rubbed against the ambulance tire in just such a way that it gained renewed vigor and bounced. When both automobiles found it necessary to let off the gas as they turned a corner, the tire darted forward like a jackrabbit. Nancy pulled ahead of the ambulance, hoping to catch up with it. She was so close, but still needed speed. She pumped on the gas. The engine gagged for a moment. Everyone jumped when their car backfired. "They're shooting at us!" yelled security guard Lewis. Both guards wished they were authorized to carry firearms. That right was taken away after security guard Lewis's little shootout with the cardboard bandito, aka the headless grandpa. Security guard Jordan wished one of his children were around to shoot at them. Nancy was just about caught up to her tire. Coming out of the turn, she found herself ahead of the ambulance. She pumped the gas again. It choked and seemed to stall. The driver and the security guards wondered if their car was broken down. Without warning, orange sparks mixed with black exhaust shot at them from Nancy's muffler like a cannon. Their windshield was blackened out, as if a giant land squid painted their van with ink. With zero visibility, they came to a stop post-haste. Nancy and Joe thought it was the most spectacular miracle they ever witnessed when their wheel rolled back into place and they were able to drive home and pull into their garage with 4 tires. But the luck, the 1 in a million zillion chance that a renegade tire could actually roll at just the right speed, at just the right angle, to reattach into the original position, seemed trivial compared to what they found when they inspected the car later. Back at the clinic, the ambulance driver and the guards were getting all sorts of heat from their superiors. Not because of the scratches and dents in the ambulance, or even the risk they took engaging in a high-speed chase. They were questioned about the alleged theft of one of the ambulance tires. The ambulance hadn't been left unattended, and all of them swore up and down that they didn't take the back left tire. So none of them could figure out how the old, crummy, oxidized tire, which belonged to an older car, had taken the place of the tire that had been on there an hour earlier, or how they could have made it so far without lug nuts. Chapter 47. Frank put on one of the 2 pairs of goggles and looked around the classroom. Through the goggles that Polly had brought in, he looked like a demented insect. Under the mounds of black electrician's tape that covered the setup, they were basically plastic safety goggles with tag-board cord toilet paper rolls extending from the eyes. Polly finished mending the larger pair with tape. You see, with those, he explained, the range of vision is narrowed down, so the student is less distracted by his surroundings. It was no accident that Polly used the pronoun his. So they're sort of like blinders, said Janet. Stuttered Polly. He had trouble talking to girls that weren't photographic images. Ideally, they're to keep the student who is trying to study from, he straightened his tie, from looking at girls in the vicinity. Janet pshawed the notion that boys were such baboons that they couldn't focus on anything intellectual in the presence of ladies. She turned and started to ask Frank his opinion, but his paper tubes were focused on her chest. What is this? Did I pick up the transcript for a Three's Company episode? No, it's the right book. Hey, Frank, beckoned Terrence from behind. When Frank looked, Terrence shot a spitwad into one of his tubes. As Frank struggled to get the fragile headgear off, Polly resolved that there was no way he was handing over his second invention, which was far too delicate for those apes to be jarring around, hitting each other over the heads with. The second pair looked like night vision goggles. Instead of toilet paper rolls, microscopes were mounted in front of the eyes. These were for hardcore science students.
Ho!